Do you know Leo?
I've met so many times. Well, good to see you again.
You're not.
You look younger than you.
You're getting older.
No, but you're getting younger.
Hello.
Good morning. So you are okay.
I don't remember if there are any different.
Right now it's only Lino Costa.
Okay.
Gonna
He's
check it.
attending. He's attending now.
Pizza.
The first site.
This one.
Yes, Bacon Salvo is next.
So okay.
Yes.
Okay. I got it. Okay. ABC here.
The first one is there, the second one,
I
and
see.
the third one is
I
Clara.
see Lino Costa here.
No, but Lino Costa, yes, it's just watching.
Felipe.
Filipe Alvelos, no. No, the speaker is the first one, Marina
Okay.
Matos. And the second presentation, the first is the speaker, Gonçalo. And Clara is not yet. Is virtual.
There are the people who are.
Okay. And the last one, show me the program, please. And the last one is
Leocadio.
Leo. It's here. Did you put your presentation there? The third speaker is missing. Yeah? This virtual is not yet. So if you are presenting, you should go to that room and to watch, go to that. Okay.
It's still 1 hour left.
I Okay, good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here. This is the first session of computational optimization and applications workshop. Thank you for submitting to our workshop. And let's start. The first speaker is Marina. She will talk about the genetic algorithm for forest firefighting optimization. We have 15 minutes and plus 5 minutes.
Yes, of course. Okay. The problem is that it's also. Okay.
Hello, my name is Marina March. I am a PhD student at the University of Minho. This work was carried out joint with professors Ana Rocha, Lino Costa, and Felipe Alvelos. And the title of my work is A Scalable Approach to Optimizing Forest Firefighting. Throughout this presentation, I will present a brief introduction, motivation and objectives. Then the concept of forest fires is presented and their management and suppression. Then I present the methodology and finally the results and the main conclusions. The number of forest fires has been increasing, significantly causing great concern worldwide. Forest fires damage the ecosystem, leading to negative consequences for life, economy, and the environment. In 2017 in Portugal, the forest fires were catastrophic, caused 117 deaths, 254 injured, major damage to structures, and loss of biodiversity in a large forest area. So, firefighting is an important topic in optimization, since improvements in research and quick actions are needed by professionals working in this area. The objective of this work is minimize the impact of forest fires through scheduling problem formulation using a genetic algorithm. It is intended to obtain the optimal sequence order by maximizing the unburned area. The example of this application in this work is one firefighting research for fighting 10 fire fronts. A forest fire is the combustion of combustible materials existing in forest areas. So it is necessary to make a good management of forest fire. 400 million hectares are burned every year in the world, where only 100 million hectares are forest areas. The main objective of the means of combat is to suppress a forest fire as quickly as possible. Firefighting depends not only the research involved, but also on the number, skills, and level of preparedness of teams. The algorithm used in this work was genetic algorithm. This algorithm is a global optimization method inspired by the evolutionary theory of the species, namely the natural selection. 5 phases are considered in genetic algorithm: the initial population, the fitness, function, selection, crossover, and mutation. In this slide, I present the genetic operators used for this work. A permutation representation was adopted for this work. In this work, each chromosome is a sequence of integer values that can occur only once, and each chromosome indicates the order each fire ignition is combated by the firefighting research. The order-based crossover was used. This operator starts with 2 parents. Are selected the positions in the chromosome, cross these 2 parents, these positions for the 2 parents, and in the hand taken the offsprings and your positions is cross. And finally, the inverse mutation. The chromosome selected the positions in red, and then in the final chromosome is inverse for the initial. Oops, wait. The goal of this work is optimization of scheduled firefighting operations problem using the genetic algorithm. The objective function used in this work is the unburned area. The unburned area is given by the initial area and the burnt area, the difference in the initial area and the burnt area. And the burnt area is given by the duration rate and the time conclusions to square. This time conclusion is given by the sum between processing time and the travel time. And the processing time is given by this expression. In this problem, each fire is fighting only once. The processor only extinguishes 1 fire at a time. So while it is fighting the current fire, the following ones are spreading depending on the weather conditions. And when the processor is fighting, it must be extinguished so that the processor can travel to the next fire. For this problem, 10 ignitions located in Braga district in Portugal were selected, and 1 research was selected for this scheduling problem. In this image, I presented the fire ignition selected in the district of Braga. and here is the fire station. In this slide, we can see this table. This table represents the data for the 10 ignitions. In this column, for example, is represent the area initial, the initial area for each fire ignition. And here is the travel time between the fire station to fire heat. These metrics represent the travel times between the fire fronts and the total area initial considered is 16,144.780 hectares. The genetic algorithm parameters used in this work were the population size is 20, a permutation representation, the tournament selection, the order-based crossover and inverse mutation were used. The maximum number of generations was 200, and the 30 independent runs were selected. This table shows the 5 solutions achieved of the 30 runs. The first solution is the best because the value of unburned area is higher. And here in this slide, this represents the best solution achieved. This table shows the data for this solution, the unburned area for each fire front, the burnt area, travel time, and the processing time. And this image shows the path taken by the research. So the research starts in fire station, goes to fire 5, then fire 9, fire 1, and so on. The main conclusions. Optimizing firefighting actions is a very important topic. In this work, a forest firefighting scheduling problem with 10 fire ignitions and 1 research of combat in the district of Braga in Portugal was studied. The aim was to find the best order sequence of actions of 1 firefighting research. Genetic algorithm and 30 runs was used. The best solution found was this. The solution obtained a maximum value of unburned area of 16,029.383 hectares. In the future, we intend to formulate the problem with more than 1 research, study the effect of other genetic operators based on permutation on the performance of the algorithm, formulate and solve this problem as multi-objective problem, introduce other objectives, apply and compare the performance of other optimization algorithms. And thank you.
Marina, any question or remarks?
Congratulations on your work, it's very interesting. I have 2 questions. First, looking at your future work, I would like to know what other algorithms you think it would be good for this problem. And the second one is your motivation was based on casualties. I think 5 years ago, a lot of persons died in fires in Portugal. Would it be possible to, in a straightforward way, include the objective of saving casualties at the same time as maximizing the unburned area or minimizing the burned area?
Okay, thank you. In the future, we pretend maybe some optimization algorithms, for example, the PSO, particle swarm optimization, for example, maybe simulating annealing, test these algorithms.
Okay.
And the second question, can you repeat,
it would
please?
be easy to, in a straightforward way, not in a very fancy multi-objective problem, just to add something to your objective in order so that the rank of priorities account for persons, not only burn area, but also density of the region, I don't know. Because in Portugal, everybody talks about fires, not because of the burn area, because we have a lot of burn area for many years, but because of casualties. It was a dramatic year in 2017. So it would be easy or not to include, for instance, density of the, not only in terms of area, but also in terms of population. I don't know.
In this work, we pretend use scheduling problem to research, but the persons are
Okay, in the future.
Maybe
in the future, maybe in the
because,
future, but
not only the population,
Yes.
but also the type of combustible
Yes.
that exists in some region. So maybe affect.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Maybe next year we come to our conference, dynamics of disasters. Because many talks on fires.
okay.
So that's we published 2 books on dynamics of disasters. And if you check it's pretty, there are many chapters on fires. In Australia, in the United States. It's many places.
Okay.
So it's an issue that exists many places, not only in Portugal.
Yes. Yes.
So we get ideas of what are the. But
Thank
definitely it's a multi-objective optimization problem.
Yes.
Yes, it's the next step.
Yes.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes? No? Sorry? Oh, a photo, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's go to the second speaker. Is Gonçalo. The name of the talk is on determining the particle swarm optimization for solving the traffic light problem.
So, hello, my name is Gonçalo Silva. Together with Professor Ana Rocha, the PhD student Gabriela, and the professors António, Dalil, and José. We did a PSO particle swarm optimization tuning for solving the traffic light problem. I will start with an introduction, talk a bit about our specific problem. I'll give some details about the implementation. We'll present the results and then with the conclusion. The current increase in world population and the fast economic growth causes increase in mobility needs. in particular inside big cities where a larger number of vehicles are present. And the existing road infrastructure was designed in a different reality that we live in today. And this causes traffic jams regularly that have a negative impact on our society, mainly on the fuel consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, and of course delays in the transportation systems. But in order to solve this problem, infrastructure changes are very expensive, but there's another way, and the optimization of the traffic lights cycle times is one of the solutions that can improve circulation without the need to expensive infrastructure changes. We can find traffic lights in various locations. One specific location where you can find it is when we have only one lane, one road with one lane, but that must have the two-way circulating alternatively. We call that one lane and two ways problem. Inside that problem, there are two situations where an older bridge that only has the physical space for one lane, or the road under maintenance that closes one of the lanes, and so we only have one for both ways of traffic. In the first one, we have fixed traffic lights, and so we can measure the characteristics of the road, and we can measure the amount of vehicles that usually circulate in that road, and can perform an offline optimization. In the second, since it's more spontaneous and changes almost daily, and a different approach of online optimization would be necessary. Our work focused on the first of these two situations. We utilized the simulation of urban mobility, or SUM for short, as our simulator. This is our network based on that bridge. There are two traffic lights, one of the left, one of one side, each side of the bridge. The distance between those two are 100 meters, and there's a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour. The Sumo Net Edit tool doesn't allow the existence of one line with the two ways working alternatively. So we had to design the road with two ways and block the possibility of the two ways are open at the same time through the traffic lights. To do that, we made sure that there were a phase with all red signal, and to empty the road of the last cars that entered that area. Based on the distance and the velocity, all red time was 30 seconds. Due to the limitations of the bridge, only passenger vehicles are allowed to pass. And we defined two routes, one from the left to the right and the other way around. The amount of vehicles that would pass through the simulation was arbitrarily defined and was assigned according to a random uniform distribution. Our simulation stopping criteria was set to when all vehicles leave the network, because only when the vehicle leaves the network, the waiting time that he experienced is collected. Our optimization algorithm was the particle swarm optimization. We went to study the influence of the particle velocity parameters could have on the solution. We used three different approaches for the velocity parameters. Fixed inertia weight in experiments 1 and 2 with a lower value and a higher value. Descending inertia weight, starting with the higher value on the first iterations and going down until the last one. And we apply the construction factor, and the resulting number is then multiplied by the values of the parameters, lowering the velocity. Each experiment was conducted 30 times, and on all experiments, there was 20 particles searching for the solution, and a max iterations of 50 was set. Our strategy was organized in a two-step routine: the algorithm, the optimization algorithm, and the simulation process. Each time the algorithm finds a new traffic light time configuration, Sumo runs that configuration, obtains the values of the waiting time, send those results back to the algorithm that proceeds to evaluate the solution and create a new configuration. And the cycle repeats until the stopping criteria. Our objective function is then the average waiting time. Waiting time is the amount of time that the vehicle was stopped due to involuntary effects like traffic lights or other cars in front of them. Results of our strategy can be seen in this slide. The best solution was found on the first experiment, and but on average, experiment 4 found better solutions more consistently. This shows that lower velocity parameters achieve better results. In order to compare this waiting time to know if it's a good or bad solution, we run a simulation of the real scenario, and Y1 and Y2 are the green phase times of the traffic light number 1 and traffic light number 2. And in the real scenario, there was set a time for that green phase time of 2 minutes. And after the simulation, waiting time was 51 seconds. So we could see that our strategy was indeed reducing the waiting time. Here is the behavior of the particles during the optimization. We can see experiments 1 to 4 in the initial position after 10, 30, and 50 iterations. Here you can see that experiment 2, that was where the parameters allowed higher velocities. The particles are still too scattered throughout the solution, and in the other 3, the particles achieve the better conversions. Sorry. Here you can see the evolution of the number of vehicles in the system during the simulation times of 360 seconds. The number of vehicles is similar in both scenarios, but the reduction in the waiting time should have translated into a reduced traffic congestion. And after reviewing the results, we found that there were vehicles that could not enter the network we designed because the queue in the traffic lights reached the limits of the network. So when we were looking at those vehicles that couldn't enter the system, there we saw that there was indeed a reduction in the number of vehicles in the optimized strategy. As we can see in this picture that shows the evolution of the number of vehicles waiting outside the network. Since each time a vehicle leaves the network returns the value of the waiting time that he experienced, we could also compare the waiting time in the optimized scenario in the left and the real scenario in the right. Here you can see that the waiting times on the optimized run only reach at maximum a little more than 100 seconds, while on the real scenario, we could see waiting times of 180 seconds. In conclusion, this research aimed to better understand the PSO particles behavior and to optimize the waiting time in our problem. In the end, experiment 1 achieved a better result of 44 seconds for traffic light number 1 and 32 seconds to traffic light number 2, resulting in this configuration resulted in a waiting time of 38 seconds. Although experiment 4 achieved better on average results. And these parameters used in experiment 4 will be the parameters that we'll use on future work of when we pass through a more complex intersection or network. In the end, we achieve a reduction of the average waiting time of around 25.6%. This work has been supported by the Foundation to Science and Technology within the project Integrated and Innovative Solutions for the Well-being of People in Complex Urban Centers. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Gonçalo. Any question or remark? Okay. I think you can start.
Congratulations on your work. Very, very interesting.
Thank you.
I have only 2 questions. The first one is computational time important for your future work or for this work? And the second one is, why did you choose 50 iterations? Because it seems like some of the experiments were a little bit far away from the convergence.
Can you repeat the first question? Sorry.
Is computational time important?
Okay.
It's related to the second.
The computational time, we noticed that on the experiment 4, that achieved better results more often, the average runtime was lower. This could mean that the optimization was working better, and the last vehicles leaving the network were leaving earlier than on the other experiments, since that reduction verified on the running on the run time. The second question, I'm sorry.
Why did you choose 50?
50. We choose 50 iterations to limit the time, the maximum time of the optimization, because in future works we'll transit to the online traffic optimization that requires a faster calculation.
We made some preliminary experiments, and the results show that no difference increase the number of iterations.
Gonzalo, have you tried some alternative probability distributions other than the info?
No, we only use the normal thing, yes.
How many dimensions? We have two traffic lights. Only 2.
So 2 traffic lights, each
Two traffic lights, but the color is the color.
Each variable is the green phase time of each traffic light. Yes, relatively a small problem.
Yes, a small problem, and this is the first time we are using this kind of problems. So this is a very small problem because one lane.
With 2 ways.
Okay, just 1 lane. Now we are studying a complex intersection in the city of Guimarães in Portugal also. That is very complex, many traffic lights, many crosswalks, a school, and a way to the city center. So we are increasing the complexity.
But the complexity in general is
and also we are using Sumo. Sumo is a simulator, and we made some experiments to be how to use Sumo and the parameters and so on. So this is the first work.
If you intend to scale it to the situation, Is it possible to study the interaction between different types, or is this complex?
Right now, we are optimizing the fixed cycle, and we only optimize the green phase times of each traffic light. We already talked in future work. We could try to do a scheduling problem to the green light phase times optimization together with which green lights should be open at a given time, and without the fixed the limitation of the fixed cycle.
And also not only in an intersection, but in a small area.
But it's
And-
all-
Yes, they are related.
You may solve the problem there, but then create.
Yes,
Mhm.
another congestion place.
Elsewhere.
Any more? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the third speaker is to present virtually. I don't know if she's Clara, yes, okay. Now, Clara, she will present a work entitled Dynamic Analysis of the Sustainable Performance of Electric Mobility in European Countries. Okay, Clara, whenever you want.
Okay. So, are you seeing my presentation? Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes, and we are hearing you very well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, this is a joint work with Angela Ferreira. Firstly, I will present what is the motivation of this study, what is the objective. Also, I will introduce the methodology, that is the model and the Bienal Peace Index, and data that we have used. So, afterwards, we will present the results, and finally, I will conclude. Recently, European Commission raised 2030 green gas emissions reductions target, moving towards a climate neutral economy. In fact, transportation represents almost a quarter of European green gas emissions, being the sector with the increased emissions above 1990 levels. So, in order to reduce the fossil fuel dependency, European Commission has implemented a strategy to support a irreversible shift towards low emission mobility. So, this study intends to analyze the evolution of performance of European countries in electric mobility, taking into account the sustainability that is addressed in four pillars: economic, social, environment, and technology. The objective is to assess the performance of European countries, 28 European countries, during the period 2015 and 2019. I use a composite indicator that is based on indicators that are classified in four sustainable dimensions: economy, technology, environment, and society. So, the methodology that is adopted is the benefit of doubt model that enables to calculate a composite indicator for each country and year. And additionally, the Bienal Peace Index is used to evaluate the dynamic change in sustainable performance of the countries over the years. So, in fact, this is an innovative approach because this method enables to assess the dynamic of sustainable performance of electric mobility in European countries, since the index can be decomposed effects, the technical change that measure the front shift effect. Basically, it addresses the progression or the duration of the frontier that is defined by the best practice of European countries in sustainable electric mobility, and also can be decomposed in the catching up effect, that is the efficient change that captures the evolution of each country against the best practice observed in each period. So, the performance indicator for each country and in each year is assessed by a basic benefit of doubt model, when the performance indicator is the weighted average of the sub-indicators that we have selected, and we are using also virtual weight restrictions to avoid zero weights and excessive weights. Also, we use a biennial Malmquist index where we use these performance indicators. In fact, the biennial Malmquist index is used in the case of a panel data. And the feature of this index is that that it considers a frontier technology B that is defined by the best practice countries in terms of sustainable electric mobility that are observed in each pair of successive years T and T+1. So, as I already referred, so this index can be decomposed in efficient change and technical change. We do not need a price date and other assumptions, and it is based on input or output distance function. In the case of the benefit of doubt model, we use the output, the performance indicator. It corresponds to the output distance function. This index enables to calculate the total factor productivity using, in this case, the benefit of doubt model. Basically, this total productivity indicator enables to measure the change of a country between 2 years by using this ratio that is the distance of the countries observed in the period T+1, evaluated in reference to a frontier technology B that is defined by the best practice countries in 2 successive years T and T+1. In the denominator, we see the distinct function of countries observed in the period T regarding the frontier technology B. So this total productivity change MB is decomposed in efficient change and technical change. So, a score higher than 1 represents an improvement. In the case of the total productivity change, the biennial Malmquist index, a score higher than 1 represents a total productivity improvement, otherwise represents a deterioration. The same behavior is used for the others indicators, the efficient change. If the efficient change has a score higher than 1, this represents the countries are moving closer to the frontier. Also, represents an improvement. Also, regarding the technical change, a score higher than 1 represents improvement of the frontier of the productivity that implies that a progression of the frontier was observed. We applied this methodology to our data, in which the objective is to assess the performance of electric mobility in European countries in the period 2015 and 2019 by using sub-indicators that are classified in four sustainable dimensions: economy, so we use the energy intensity of GDP, also the fuel price for petroleum products. We use in technology dimension, we use the number of charging points per inhabitants, and also the market share of electrically chargeable vehicles. In environment dimension, we use the green gas emissions from fuel combustion in road transport, the industrial production index, and the share of renewable energy transport. In society, we consider the tertiary education attainment. So, during this period, we observe a positive behavior of all these indicators, but except the green gas emissions that have been increasing behind 90 levels. So we calculate the performance indicator for each country in each year. We observed in each years the two benchmarks that are the Netherlands and Sweden, which keep the efficiency status in all years. So we observed that the mean was increasing. So on average, we can conclude that the countries are getting closer to the frontier of the best practice on sustainable electric mobility until this effect is observed until 2018. Although they are getting farther from the frontier in the last year, 2019. So we went in the dynamic analysis, we went to observe if, in fact, what happened to the frontier, if it was observed upward of the frontier or a downward, that is a progression or a duration of the frontier, and if, in fact, the countries are getting closer to the frontier or not. This is why we use a biennial Malmquist index. So, by considering the biennial frontier defined by two successive periods, we analyze for each pair of successive periods. So, in the first between 2015 and 16, we observe that there are 21 countries that improve the total productivity, mainly due to the increase of efficient change and also due to the progression of the frontier. In between 2016 and 17, we observed that all countries improve their total productivity except Croatia. This is mainly due to the increase in efficient change and also the progression of the frontier. What happened in between 2017 and 18? So all countries improve their total productivity, mainly due to the increase of technical change, since the progression of the frontier is observed in all countries. Okay? And also, although there are some 13 countries that decrease the efficient change. In the last pair of years analyzed, we observed that almost all countries improved their total productivity, except 3 countries, which is mainly due to the increase of technical change, because the progression of the frontier was observed in all countries. But the efficient change has decreased in 20 countries. So, what we can conclude that this is a innovative approach to assess the dynamics of sustainable performance of electric mobility in European countries between 2015 and 2019. Also, we use we assess the sustainable performance by using benefit of the doubt model, and indicators from 4 dimensions, and we use the Mandianal Malmquist index to track the change of total sustainable performance of electric mobility that can be decomposed into effects, catching effect, and frontier shift effect. So, regarding our situation in European countries, the total productivity change has been improved, mainly due to the progression of the frontier since the best practice of sustainable electric mobility has been improved, because the progression of the frontier was observed in all countries from 2018. In fact, we observed a part of the frontier in the last 2 years of analysis. But what happened is that although in the first until 2017, the majority of the countries are getting closer to the frontier, the opposite effect occurred in the last 2 years. So this means that an increasing number of countries had more difficulties to adopt the best practice of the benchmarks. So our study indicates that it is necessary to reinforce the actual policies to promote the electric mobility penetration, mainly in underperforming countries that are composite indicator lower than 1. So, thank you. Okay.
The others. I don't know if they have the faces. Okay. You can see Eligius. So, any question or any remark to Clara? Yes, okay. Mobility.
Congratulations, Clara, for your nice presentation. My question is only out of curiosity. I wonder if Portugal is in the underperforming countries or not.
Portugal, because Portugal, so I can see, because I do not remember the particular case, because we have a lot of the results of countries, but in the paper we can, because we have in the paper detailed all the results of all countries, but as this is a short presentation, I do not detail. But I have to remember, and I have if I have time, I can see this and check in the paper, because there are 20, because we have 28 results for times 5 years. And also we have three indicators evaluated for each country. So this is a lot of data that we have to analyze. So in this case, we have an effort to make a sense of all these scores. Okay, so but one thing that we can conclude that Portugal, so the frontier. We observe a progression of the frontier in the last 2 years. In regarding of situation of Portugal in terms of renewable energy and in terms of electric mobility, Portugal is in the top countries. Okay, we think that in terms of technical change that is higher than one, no doubt about this. But in terms of efficient change, it will be so. Portugal has been increasing also. But the right scores, I do not have. We have to read in the paper.
Check the paper, thank you. We can check the paper and see the numbers. Thank you,
Because
Clara.
okay.
I don't know if we have any question. Elisius, do you want to say something? Are you better now? No? Okay. And write anything? Okay. You have okay. Any question more? No? Thank you. Thank you, Clara. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Maybe we wait 10 minutes? No. Want to see? Okay, you can start. So now we will have the last session of this, the last speaker of this session, sorry. Leo will present on monotonicity detection and initial
Mira lo que tú quieras.
mention
Las dos cosas. Pasa
Mira
que-
con el botón.
Sí, es que aquí es simplemente le da el botón derecho y fácil, horizontal.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thanks for the organization for this great conference, for all the people coming here, and also for people online. This work is done with Hendrix. I know all of you know him. Frederic Messine from France, and Boar Katot from Czech. They are very good people and mathematicians. So this is the outline. We want to solve a robotization algorithm using branch and bound, so it's deterministic, exhaustive. The difference from other algorithms that we want to deal with the search region as in a simplex. Okay, we will put the simplex, and as far as we know, we are the first to try to apply the monotonicity test over a simplex in a general case. Okay, so robot optimization, I think you already know what it. We have an objective function over the domain, and we need to minimize the function and to localize the minimized points over the CR region. Branch and bound algorithm is well known. We have to define some bounding rule to get bounds over the subregion, how to select next subregion to process, how we can discard area where we know that there is no solution, how to divide or to branch, how to make branches in the CR tree, and to decide when the algorithm finish. And this is what I found the easier way for the simplest algorithm. We just start with the line and objective, have the data structure, we're just storing into the CR region, and while the determination criterion is not satisfied, we start an element of the data structure, and it cannot be made can be divided again, and propose already came to this data structure, and you go to the loop until the determination criteria, but is, for instance, here is based on the bounds, the difference between the best solution or the worst solution in the data structure and the upper bound of the. So what is a simplex? A simplex is just an opinion. You have several vertices. You have affinity independent points. They are the vertices of the simplex. Every point inside the simplex is a fine combination of the vertices. Okay, so that has to be the 1, and now that has to 1. For instance, here we have an edge, is the first one simplex because it's two vertex, 1 dimension, two simplex is 2 dimension, 1 that have 3 vertex, and the third simplex. This is the figure for the unit simplex, but it can be any orientation, any. Okay. So what we are using here, first of all, we have to get bound over the simplex. This is not simple, and we use a trick that we enclose the simplex over a box and use interarithmetic, because our interarithmetic in a natural way gives upper and lower bound of this. Okay? So for instance, the key is hold. Okay. For instance, we have this function, and we take an interval, and this is the real range of the function, and the interval arithmetic over this interval, we get overestimation in the upper and lower bound of the arithmetic. Okay, we receive that bound. When we are on a simplex, we have this simplex, and this is the function over the simplex, this is the real range, but we put the box over the simplex, we have even more overestimation, because the area that is not on the simplex. For instance, this is the two simplex, and this is the box we put there. Okay, so this is the one weak point, but we can. It's not working. Can you use this?
Okay.
So the selection is, okay, we know the bounds, and we are minimizing by with the next simplex process of region is this with a smaller lower bound. And the algorithm finish when the best upper bound, for instance, it can be the best evaluated point, minimum value of the evaluated points, minus the lower bound of the smaller lower bound of the simplex in the data structure is smaller than half. Okay, we quite precise bounds of the and the division rules is the same along the set. For instance, here will be set reset, for this we set reset, and then we set this, and for this we set the longer set. And you can see that some points are shared between the midpoint of that, if you get a bound, lower bound that is greater than the upper bound, then you can get that's simple because the minimum is there. And we focus on the monthly test. So the relative interior of the simplex is without the boundary. So the boundary is just the bounds, the limits of the simplex. So if the fellow is not in the inclusion, interval inclusion of the derivative, I may say that we can get bounds of the derivative with automatic differentiation in an automatic way. We don't need the formula of the derivative. Okay, we need the arithmetic and automatic differentiation. So if the zero is not in the derivative and the simplex is not inside the boundary of the initial simplex, interior, we can reject because there is direction where the function is more meaningful, and we are not in the boundary of the initial simplex. But the problem is how to know that the simplex is at the boundary or not. It's not as simple that on a box. Okay, for instance, you can check that all the points is a linear combination of lambda, but the lambda, none of them is 0 or 1. But this is complicated. Okay, or it's later on. The idea here is that if we are on the boundary, for instance, in this case, the function is monotonous to the right, and this are my simplex in the data structure. I may reduce the simplex to the boundary facet of the simplex. This is a right facet, and this as well. Okay, both are monotonous to the right. But for instance, for those the function is monotonous down, this can be rejected because the facet that now is this edge is not on the boundary. So there is a minimum here, so we can reject that. But this can be reduced. So I can reduce the simplex to the facet. Okay. But what is a border facet? This is the other question. We will go next. So to determine what is a border or not, actually the border facet is the facet that is inside an initial facet with the same number of particles. Okay. So what we do is we label the vertices on the path. The vertices is 0, have 1, next one, the components. The path between 0 and B1, if I do a bit more between this and this, you have this path. Okay. So you have the complete simple, you have all the vertices. So in the next one, for instance, when we divide the new vertex is generated by longest of dissection. So if take two vertex and take the middle of them. So the facet of the new vertex with the middle of the facet of the vertex involved. So for instance, in this example, I have this vertex and this vertex, and I get this edge. The level of the facet of this vertex will be the middle of them, and so on. For this is the same. When I divide this, I do the middle of this vertex, the facet is the same, and this, and you get the whole one. Because this whole one is inside the full simple, the initial simplex. So having simplex with all level ones, you know that it's completely integral. And if the function is monotonous, you can do that. Okay. It's the same. Let's go. Okay, for instance, this is an example that if you this facet, if you do the to know the facet is forward or not, what you are doing is you have n vertices, and the facet is forward in the number of one in the bit of the face of each of the vertices is n. For instance, let's see what's happening with this facet. This facet is two vertex, and you do the bit or of 1 to 1, 0 to 1 is the same 1 to 1. So we have two vertex, and the number of ones in the label is 2, so it's 1. If you took, for instance, this one and this one, you always get all ones, so it's not 4, it's integral. Okay. So with our facet, we have to check the system to decrease in gradient from vertex to the facet. Every facet is determined by the opposite vertex. For instance, this facet is determined by this facet. If I have a derivative to the facet which is negative, I know that the minimum is here. If it's positive, I know that there is no. So the algorithm that you have to do bit more, but we can go further and avoid this calculation for some cases. For instance, we know that this is initial simplex. When we do the first dissection here, we know that all generated new facets, this one, are interior. So this vertex, this is labeled as 2 because it's initial simplex and the order facet is 2. The opposite vertex came false. You know, this opposite vertex, the new one is false, and this is false. And the new one inherited the level of the other part of the edge. It was true, this is true, and that was true, and this was true. Okay, so it's quite simple now to remind. If I'm bordered, if it's not by a simple division, we can, it's not signal reduce simple, we can do simple, and when we reduce, we can even prove that the facet level can have to be recalculated for non-ordered facet. They are already ordered, we don't have to recalculate. So this is the next section is the main important thing is the directional derivative. So we can have a directional vector. For instance, we can go where the facet R, the facet G, and this is the centroid of the simplex. We can have a directional vector for pi. So C means pi, this direction. So the integral directional derivative is the inner product of that direction times the inclusion of the derivative over the something. So the interval full of the simple. And this is some states, not the node, but the most important. If the theory does not belong, this is a necessary condition, but not sufficient. So the theory belongs to the inclusion, not belong to the derivative of the interval full of x. I know that the function is monotonous for the interval full. And S has not border facet. And S is full dimensional, we can record. Because we are not on the borders, it's interior, we can record. But S has no border facets, and S is a reduced one, I reduce already to a facet. Then, if I found a directional derivative which is not is monotonous, then I can take it as well. Because it has no border facets. And the most useful one is if I found a directional derivative, which it's negative, I mean move to the facet. And it is not border. I can reject the simplex because the simplex has the minimum in a non-border facet, so there is area inside the initial simplex where the minimum is. And if the derivative directional derivative is negative, f the facet is border, I can reduce to that path because I know that the minimum is only on that border path. Okay. So next. This is a very simple example. You have f(x1 squared plus x2 squared times 2 ellipses, and we shifted the minimum a little bit because the minimum can be here. We shift here, so this function is monotonous to this point. And we draw the red arrow when we have a negative directional derivative from the vertex to the path. Black arrow when the theory is inside, we cannot put anything. And blue when the derivative is positive. And we can see that from E1 to this path, we get negative direction, so the minimum is in the path B0, B2. So we can reject completely the other part of the simplex and focus only on the path. We reduce the simplex to a path. When we are in this, now we are on the edge. It doesn't matter, we have only one direction. So we divide it for the first, we divide it by the middle. So for the first, we get direction to the center. It's negative, the center is not border. So we can reject this part. We go for that. So we divide it by the middle and we get positive from the center to the vertex. So we have a positive to the border concept. So we reject, we reject, and at the end we come. If you want to know more about directional derivative, here you have some references. And next, this is we can use some heuristic direction. For computational point of view, it's simple to use the center, but we can use also the vertex of the simplex. For instance, in this example, we have this simplex, and we evaluate the center with this positive to the non-border path. I cannot do anything. But in this case, it's positive. We use it the vertex to vertex for this path. It's positive from this vertex to that. When I found a directional in this direction, I can apply everywhere. So it's positive everywhere in that direction. It means that it's negative in the other direction. So from this vertex, it's negative to the other direction. So this facet has the minimum. And because it's not border, I know that the minimum is here. In that direction, the minimum is, and there is area in the simple, so I can reject completely the simple. In the dark green, I don't think to see very well, but dark green area are rejected completely the simple. And in this case, you can see that all the arrows are black, and the green, light green means that I have to reduce the border facet and work on the border facet. Okay. This is another example with the minimums here. We can see that everything is not green, but perhaps here. So the method using heuristic seems to work. So move on. But interesting information is that because we are using inclusion of the interval metric over interval curve for the simplex, we have always found directional derivatives that are parallel to the component-wise. Then why not to look for this component-wise direction? The problem is that many simplicity where there is no such direction. For instance, you have the unit simplex, you have 100, 011, and 031. There is no direction in the simplex that are parallel to the component. So then you have to forget, and then it's more computational. So the idea of some of the people of the group was to use linear programming. And the linear programming is looking for a positive directional derivative. Actually, to look for a positive is the same to look for the negative in the other direction. So the idea is, okay, this is we want to find the lower bound of the directional derivative have to greater than 0. And the lower bound, if you look for how the inner product is done, is the summatory of the minima of the direction by the lower bound and the direction times the upper bound. So the idea is to formulate this mean part with a set value, and the next slide shows you the model. So I want to maximize set, and set I is what we saw before. In this case, we focus in the path at 0, so we fix the vector 0. Y is a point in the F0 facet. So it's got to be, instead of start to 0, start to 1. So we eliminate the bit 0. So this is a linear combination of vectors and the path. So we move from vector 0 to the point in the path. So when we have to check if the 0 at the end, we can get the solution, the direction B0y, then you can choose the directional derivative and see the 0 inside. So you go ahead, you can see that all the directional derivatives are almost perpendicular. So it found all, in the best way, the directional derivatives. But we have to solve a linear problem. So for each path, so if I take this, I have to set for each of the paths. Okay, as soon as I find one, I finish, but perhaps I have to change them all. So next one, this is another example. And the next one. And this is just for the test problem we use. So the first two problems are originally simplex. The initial set region is a simplex. I didn't say at the beginning that this problem may happen, for instance, in portfolio problem when you have to invest money. Like the percentage you invest have to assume 100%, or you are designing a new product based on raw material, and the percentage of the raw material within 100%. But the other problem, actually, all of them, at least at the portfolio, are usually post-constrained. And they're taking for this normal optimization test problem. Go ahead. What we did, because we are interested not in the post-constraining, but the simple constraining. If you have a post-constraining, you can divide it in n factorial and divide it by this simplex and big simplex and so on. But we want to solve when the initial simplex clear that cell region is a simplex. So what we did is to put the minimum point on the left-hand side of Hafet, and the side of the simplex, which is the regular one, is half of the box. Okay, for instance, this is the golden price, and this is our initial region for the golden price. You go ahead. These are the results. Okay, we do the alpha is 10 to the minus 6. It's on minus 6 then with 2 plus plus. We use the QB for automatic differentiation interval. And to solve, we use the PNL library that let easier our life when we have to code the LP solve. I meant to say that LP solve is free guide is lower than other commercial solver. Okay. Because that I limit the time over each model for 1 second. Okay. and I don't put any output because otherwise it was. So the result here, you can see that for many functions, the center and vertex, so we have the instance, if we only use the center directional vector, if we use the from vertices, use both, first of all, center and then vertex. We use the linear programming and we use them all, center, vertex, and if they are not successful, then the linear programming. From that problem, for instance, you can see that the reduction is not too high. If you have center is 528, and you move to 532. From both, you reach the same, and then with linear programming, you can see. Okay, so there are not many, or with the center and vertex, let's say we can reject the more than simplicity. Back.
Pardon.
There are some interesting problems, for example, the Harman 6 and the extension 5, where we move from 4 millions to 2 millions with the vertex, to 2 millions to 100 using both, and the new programming said that is 1,300,000 something. And you use them all, you can. I may say that the vertex, because we have both directions, we can determine if the direction is positive and negative. But the linear programming is focuses only on negative. So this is why we improved a little bit more, including the center and vertex. And for this, we move from 1 million to 100 evaluation to 1 million, 1 million, and then we end up in 800. So there is work to know what is the best direction. There is room to improve. And the problem with LP is that the next one. If you are not using LP, you have 30 seconds to solve this video, but with LP you have 14 minutes. Okay? And above you get 10 minutes, and then you move, for instance, from this problem for 5 seconds to 6 minutes. Okay? So we'll go ahead. The conclusion is that the reduction or rejection by monopsy in more than simple was not attested by other authors before. Improving in the number of simple evaluated can be order of magnitude in some example. Bounds provided by interval metric auto-attribution have overestimation, or we would like to have better bounding methods. Monotonic direction are calculated on the interval proof of the simplex. They are component-wise that we may not succeed on the simplex. These are the difficulties. Linear programming found all the monotonic direction because LP can also fail, okay, sometimes. But the cost is high. We plan to use another software like Gurobi or Eplex just to improve the running time. But the heuristic direction, CMP, are computationally cheaper and works pretty well. So for future work, we want to find the monotonic direction in a cheaper way, not a linear peak. Determine either faster what to do for that direction. Because perhaps I know that you are looking for the direction and the direction that exists because the direction is vertical and the function is monotonically horizontal, for instance. But how to determine that? Of course, to improve the method of the bounds. So this is my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I don't know if we have time for questions because, but
One quick one.
Yes.
And is the meaning of the asterisk in the benchmark problem?
The problem with the asterisk means that the function can be changed in this dimensionality.
Okay.
I don't have a question, I only have a remark. It's a very nice work.
Yeah.
And it was a great idea for you to present small examples, not only in the presentation, but throughout the paper, because it makes us believe that we are actually able to follow all the ideas. And with the small examples, we believe so, but it's very difficult to understand fully because it's very, very difficult and interesting subject.
Actually, what is in the paper is even more that you can also have mixed integer programming when you can solve at the same time all the directional derivative to all the paths. What is the coming up on all the paths? What is the back direction? Due to the lack of time, I didn't.
Okay, thank you again. Or during lunch. Thank you all for being here. We continue the workshop of computational and optimization applications after lunch at 3. Now we have the keynote. He's here, yes?
The,
He's in this room.
yes.
Okay.
Just figuring out, yeah.
Can you contact the users in order to set up the microphone so that he can introduce?
Oh, okay. Elias was already here. He has.
Yes, problems?
To set the microphone?
No, in order that he can be able to introduce him from remote. It's important that the videos can introduce you because he stay at home.
It's a pity he got the COVID. Yeah, he has been working so hard for the last year in the organization.
Yeah, fortunately,
But things
everything.
happen.
Yeah, fortunately, everything goes well.
Yeah, so this is more important. That's the most important. That does not affect me.
And we need to copy from the USB to the system, the presentation.
Damiano, we have finished it here if you want to.
But cannot sense it. You have to wait.
El PowerPoint lo podemos ejecutar directamente. ¿Tiene USB por aquí?
Por aquí.
Aquí, vale.
You only call the videos?
Pardon?
You want
I
that
have
I call the videos?
I have